Greetings and welcome to Hexed Encountered. I'm Joe. In this video, we'll be doing a first look at the game Musket and Pike Dual Pack. This is designed by Ben Hull and is published by GMT Games. This is a combination of battles from the 30 Years' War and the First English Civil War. And they're in one box because they're from the same series. This is a gunpowder era game, as you might guess from the title. It's 17th century. So the Musket and Pike Dual Pack contains two 17th century tactical battle games from the award-winning Musket and Pike series, This Accursed Civil War and Sweden Fights On. Both have been out of print for over a decade. For this special edition, two new battles have been included, Sheraton and Cropredy Bridge, and all orders of battle and maps have been updated to reflect the latest scholarship. There are a total of 11 battles included. You have a list here from the This Accursed Civil War, which was, of course, English Civil War, and Sweden Fights On. The system emphasizes command and control, and a unique style of combat in that era. Units are infantry brigades, cavalry regiments, and artillery batteries. Rules include cavalry charges, use of the cavalry's pistols to skirmish or use in close combat, artillery grazing fire, infantry techniques of fire, including advancing, retreating, and salvo firing. Play is highly interactive, and a battle can be played through in one sitting. Other special features: the battle-specific cards first introduced in Saints in Armor are provided for each battle. The cards contain the turn track, victory condition, scenario special rules, and the dead and pursuit boxes. For each battle, there is a complete set of units so that none are shared between battles for ease of setup and storage and allowing simultaneous play of multiple battles. That's pretty cool. All right, so we get a look at what some of the units look like. We got our contents. We'll see that in the rule book, so I won't go through it right now. It's a two-player game, 4 to 8 hours. Complexity is mid, right there, right in the middle at 5. Solitaire suitability is a 6. It's for 14 and up. Designed by Ben Hull, as I mentioned. We will crack it open here and take a look inside the box. So we have a playbook. We'll look at this in a little bit for This Accursed Civil War. You can see it's got 50 some odd pages, 52. Nice and thick with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 scenarios in it. Then we have the Sweden Fights On playbook, which has 4 scenarios and clocks in at 40 pages. We have our Battle Series rules, version 7.0. We're going to go through this first. Okay, so let's take a look inside. We've got our introduction. All right, let's take a look inside. We have our introduction. The Musket and Pike series is a series of tactical battle games covering the period from 1630 to 1680. So completely in the 17th century. The system is meant to highlight the peculiarities of warfare in that period and the impact of the limitation of command and control. To date, 6 games have been published. This Accursed Civil War, Sweden Fights On, so this would be the first 2 games from the series. Under the Lily Banners, Gustav Adolf the Great, Nothing Gained But Glory, and Saints in Armor. The Musket and Pike Dual Pack contains updated versions of This Accursed Civil War and Sweden Fights On. So this rulebook supersedes the earlier versions and contains many updates. For the most part, these are not new rules, but clarification of issues from previous games. However, there are some slight but subtle rule changes, and experienced players are advised to review the new rules at least once before starting. We have our list of components, 6 counter sheets, 4 22 by 34 back printed maps, 1 22 by 34 single-sided map, 2 identical 11 by 17-inch charts and table cards, 6 back printed 8.5 by 11 battle cards, 1 back printed 8.5 by 11 player aid card 2, 1 rule book, 1 playbook for each of the 2 games, 2 10-sided dice, plastic storage bags, and a box. Look at the pieces. So we have our heavy infantry with an icon, their name, battle abbreviation, the wing, morale rating, and strength points. Then light infantry, you've got a battle abbreviation, icons again, name, strength and morale points, and wing. So the wing is in a different spot, I guess. Light infantry, a cavalry rather. You can see the cavalry. They're similar to the heavy infantry in terms of where everything is laid out. Artillery. Oh, I'm sorry. Heavy, light. Whew, man. Cavalry and artillery. Double artillery units have the abbreviation DBL in their unit type bars, and there are 4 guns in the icon instead of 2. Leaders. So we have Rupert here. His battle abbreviation, his wing, and his leadership rating. Markers. Gotta have markers. There's a lot of them. Charts, tables, and die. The use of charts and tables in the game is explained in the rules. We use a 1 10-sided die. 0 is treated as 0 and not 10. Terminology. We have a glossary on page 4, so that'll be on the next page. Scale. 1 turn is 20 to 30 minutes. A hex is 100 yards. Strength. Each strength point is equal to 80 to 100 men. An artillery unit has 3 to 4 guns or a double battery of 7 to 8 guns. Cavalry units are regiments or squadrons of 200 to 500 men. Heavy infantry units are a mixture of pikes and muskets and are regiments or brigades, sometimes called battalia or tertia by the English, of 400 to 2,000 men. Light infantry are 100 to 300 musketeers or dragoons, or as otherwise indicated in a scenario. Question, sequence of play. We have an initiative phase. We have the activation phase, where you also have a preemption attempt. The inactive player may attempt to interrupt an activation in order to activate one of his wings first. Kind of a similarity to Great Battles of History. Different series, of course, different designers, but same kind of concept. Orders change. Perform actions. And you have move and or pistol fire for cavalry, normal infantry fire, salvo fire for heavy infantry, artillery fire, rally, and reform. Close combat, continuation attempt. Again, this is somewhat similar to a mechanism that's in Great Battles of History. First, finish and go to next phase. And we have our glossary here, as we saw before. Route movement, marker removal phase, initiative and activation. So as is the case in most rules, you get your sequence, then you get each part of that sequence broken out with the rules. How do you determine initiative? What's the activation precedence? Continuation, so how you would do that. Preemption, how that works. Passing, so you can pass, of course. Surrendering the field. Leaders and orders, army commanders, wing commanders. As an Air Force guy, that always has a different meaning in my head when I see wing commander. Leader, casualty, and replacement. Command, orders in general. 4 types of orders: changing orders, mandatory rally orders. Facing and formation. Facing is important in this game, as it is in a lot of games, but not all games. How do you change your facing? Your formations. You have hedgehog, open order, columns, formation recovery, movement rules, how many movement points, movement allowances are not printed on the counters. The movement allowance for each unit is unit type is listed below. Cavalry and leaders 8, light infantry 6, cavalry light infantry stack 6, heavy infantry 4, wagons and limbered guns 2, unlimbered artillery cannot move. Morale broken units cannot move. May only move in the road movement phase. Wagon units may only move when allowed by specific scenario instructions. And we have an example of movement down here. Movement and formation hits. Limbered guns, artillery, reinforcements, stacking. So let's see, basic stacking. A 1 or 2 strength light infantry unit may stack with a cavalry unit. 8-2, it's right here. 1 artillery unit or 1 wagon may stack with an infantry or cavalry unit. 8-3 and 8-5. 2 artillery units or 2 wagons may stack with a 2 hex heavy infantry unit, 1 artillery unit or wagon in each hex, 8-3 and 8-5. And 2 cavalry units may stack together momentarily to perform cavalry incorporation, 8.4. Reaction. Under certain circumstances, the inactive player may interrupt his opponent's current activation to react with his inactive units. Movement triggers, non-movement triggers, reaction, movement, interception. Makes sense. Reaction, fire, and then you have your fire combat. Basic fire rules, cavalry, pistol, fire, normal infantry fire. Got skirmishing, retreating fire, infantry stacked with artillery, salvo fire, which is heavy infantry only. Here's our fire combat procedure. Fire combat results, casualty, morale checks, etc. Casualty threshold, multiple morale checks. Cavalry ammunition, artillery. Line of sight. Got to have line of sight, right? Anything with ranged fire should have a line of sight rules. Close combat. Close combat procedure. The modifiers. Close combat results. Artillery, light infantry in close combat, cavalry pursuit, leader casualties in close combat, and we have morale. Rally and reform. Leader influence on reform and rally. Route movement, special units and terrain. You got your wagons. Heavy infantry with no pikes, dismounted cavalry, reciprocal, hex side features, Swedish style heavy infantry brigades. Croat cavalry units, and determining victory. Then some errata for some of the other games, I should say. Yeah, errata for the other games. And then on the back, you have a sequence of play, a fire combat procedure, and a close combat procedure. All right, let's look at the player aid cards. So we have 2 of these. Here on the front, we have order restrictions, order changes. So this is orders and activations, as you can see. Continuation and preemption table, casualty table for leaders, leaders replacement table. On the inside, we have the TEC, the terrain effect chart, interception, formation effects on movement, our fire tables, heavy infantry musketry, light infantry and cavalry fire, casualty threshold, artillery range, artillery fire table. And on the back, our close combat. So you got your close combat table, your matrix with types here, as you can see, for attacker and defender. Unable to retreat and cavalry pursuit table. There are 2 of these, as you might expect, for a 2-player game. You get 2 player aid cards there. Player aid card number 2, you only get 1 of these. It is 2-sided. We have an interception table, movement allowance chart. So as they're not printed on the counters, at least you have them on the player aid card. Artillery fire table, artillery range, reaction, and interception zone summary. On the back, we have the order summary chart and determining victory. All right, so this is one of the cool things I found, or I believe to be really cool, are these scenario cards. So you can see here, we've got the battle name, you got your turn track, the date, and so on. You have your commanders, the Swedish army commander here on that side. And on this side, we have King Ferdinand, the Imperial Spanish army commander. Then you have other things on here, our special rules, victory conditions. More of the special rules are on the 2 sides. Then we have the wings, the pursuit box, the eliminated units, and the Imperial Spanish wings. That's pretty cool. And they're 2-sided. So on the other side, you have another one. These are from the Swedish, Sweden Fights On, and they're blue. So you have 2 of these, because there are 4 total ones. So you have Jankow scenarios 1 and 3, and Jankow 2. Then we have Nordlingen and Wittstock here. Then we have the ones from the English Civil War. There look to be 4 of these, which makes sense, I think. There are 7 there's another Swedish one right here, 2nd Breitenfeld. And on the other side, you have Naseby from the English Civil War. So again, it's kind of the same thing, but this is pretty cool, I think. You have your dates, your turn track, your 2 commanders. Sir Thomas Fairfax from the parliamentary side and King Charles I from the royalist side. And then again, you get the same things, victory conditions, your special rules, your wings, and your 2 boxes in the middle. So pretty cool. Then we have Edgehill and 1st Newbury, Sheraton, and Crowpretty Bridge, Marston Moor, and 2nd Newbury. A card for each. I think that's a nice touch. I like that. Whole bunch of counters here. So we have 6 counter sheets. They are the smaller counters. They're not particularly large, but we can take a look here. So you can see this is the English Civil War ones. You've got King Charles, Rupert, Maurice. And you can see they're printed like back to back, or they're not all printed in the same orientation, I guess is what I'm saying. You have your units here, some musketeers and infantry, color-coded as you might expect. You can flip it over if you wanted to see the other side. All right. Double-sided, as you would expect. Backside of the leaders. So that's 1. Here's number 2. There's Cromwell. He's got several. Seems like there are multiple for some of these leaders, as you might expect, for different battles and so on. Balfour, Fairfax. More units. These are more of the sideways kind here. These are our double wides. Gives you a general idea of what they looked like, I guess, in combat with the graphic on there. It's kind of neat. Counter art, as you can see on the side there, by Charles Kibler, Mark Simonich, and Roger B. McGowan. That's a pretty solid team, in my opinion. Here you've got another look at some of these guys. Then we've got this here. This is from Sweden Fights On. So you've got some of the leaders from that game. These would be the Imperials, I believe. And again, units. They all look somewhat similar, of course. This was the state of the art for armies in those days, I suppose. Gonzaga. So there's just a look at some of the counters here. This is sheet 6. This will be our markers, so you can see what some of the markers look like. Pistols used, open order, salvo, disabled, morale shaken, limbered guns, formation broken. All right. So if we open this up, you have your introduction, your general information, some unit types, specifics on the unit types, what they look like. For all the different unit types you're going to have, right? Heavy infantry with artillery. They have the little stack of cannonballs. I remember seeing that on some of the counters. The battle designations and the counter abbreviations. So the counters that go, because remember, each scenario has its own counter mix so that you don't have to have reuse counters and figure things out. Makes it really clean and easy for setup. And you can play multiple scenarios at the same time, as it mentioned. Wing designations. So this very, very thorough here. Then you have your scenarios. Now this is pretty cool. You've got second edition notes. Then you have your historical background and the campaign, right? A look at the map with the deployment and the battle, the outcome, then your setup info. And you have your hexes, where they go, etc. Your right cavalry wing, your right infantry wing, your left infantry wing, your left cavalry wing, optional for this wing. And then you have the Imperial Spanish setup, which is the same kind of thing. Cavalry, they got a far right Croat cavalry wing, right cavalry. Man, it's hard to say that. Right cavalry wing. I want to say ring. It's like left cavalry wing, center infantry wing, etc. So that's why this is fairly long. The setup is very detailed, as you know, you have descriptions for everything and historical notes as well. Really, really high level of historicity in this particular game series. And we have Wittstock, same thing. We have Second Breitenfeld, aka Leipzig. And we have Jankow, which I believe is the last one, but there's multiple scenarios for this one. Scenario 2, afternoon. Scenario 3, full battle. And then at the back, you have historical and designer notes for this, which is pretty neat as well. Tells you about the difference. This is from the 30 Years' War, and it explains everything in there. So pretty cool. This Accursed Civil War playbook is going to be laid out similarly as you would expect. You have your introduction, your general info, which goes through your counters, color codes, notes, and then your your unit types, battle designations with their counter abbreviations for the particular counter mix for that scenario. Then you have your royalist wing designations and color stripes, your parliamentary / allied wing designations and color stripes, contingent abbreviation and color stripes, then some special rules that are applicable to all the scenarios. And then our scenarios here, Edge Hill. Again, same thing. You get your historical background, your prelude, and your Edge Hill historical update. So they updated it from the first edition. Royalist forces commanded by King Charles I. And his information, here's the map with showing where the units will be set up. Not quite as extensive in terms of number of troops as some of the scenarios in the Sweden Fights On. First Newbury, same thing. Their number of forces is a little lower in this particular game. Sheraton, at least so far. This one looks like a bigger one, of course. Decent number of forces on the royalist and parliamentary sides. Commander is Sir William Waller in this one on the parliamentary side. Then we have Crowpretty Bridge, which I probably am not pronouncing right, but sorry. Could be Crowpretty Bridge, perhaps. Map, forces, same thing. Victory conditions. Estimated historical victory levels. Marston Moor, right? That was Prince Rupert against Lord Byron. Oh no, Prince Rupert was the overall commander. Lord Byron commanded Rupert's cavalry. So you have your individual wing commanders here. Sergeant Major General Henry Tillier, Lord Goring, Thomas Fairfax, with Henry Lumsden, and Cromwell. Second Newbury, King Charles I, Prince Maurice, Lord Goring, and Jacob Astley, the Boys Independent Infantry Wing, Wing Commander Boys. So William Waller was the Army commander. Earl of Manchester was one wing. Cromwell was the cavalry wing on the left. P. Skippon in the center infantry, and Balfour on the right cavalry wing. Naseby. So there are a lot of scenarios in this one, as you can see. Historical and designer notes on the English Civil War timeline. Organization, tactics, and weapons. And more designer notes. Okay, so here we see one of the maps, and I should have said maps. I said, let's take a look at the map. There's obviously multiple maps. Very nice linen finish maps. Fairly thick paper, but really nice. And obviously you would probably put something over the top, you know, some plexi or something to hold it nice and flat and so on. But this obviously is first Newbury on this side, Edgehill on this side. Then if we flip it over, we have Marston Moor here. This is the Marston Moor map. Pretty nice. Got your roads. So also you have your commanders on here, the date, the movement allowance chart, which again is nice to have handy. I mean, eventually you'll remember it, but while you're first learning, that's a good thing to have on there. Your rivalry table. So that's one of the special rules for this particular battle, is you had some commanders who weren't always on the same page with each other, I suppose you could say. This is another map sheet. This one is the single-sided one. So here we have Copretti Bridge, and the bridge itself being right here. So these are oriented more this way. This would be, you know, the top, etc. Down here we have Sheraton as well. And here you have William Waller and King Charles. And again, down here we have William Waller and Sir Ralph Hopton was the royalist commander at Sheraton. Here we have the map for 2nd Newbury. And the map is so big that you don't actually get your commanders on here, but you do still get your map key, which I hadn't really mentioned before, but it gives you everything here. This one's got you know, some, obviously back then battles were fought typically on relatively flat areas, or you know, not like, that was terrible. You needed you know, more open space to kind of align your forces and everything, just because of the way the battles were fought back then. But you have Newbury down here at the very bottom, and then of course there's the river. Donington is here, Speen. So you have some little villages, I guess, or towns. Shaw House, Bagner, Donington Castle, Maurice's Redoubt. And then you have the Wickham Heath, etc., Clay Hill over here. So that's a big one. And here, of course, we have Naseby. So again, you can kind of see Naseby Field, the Broadmoor. Got some hedges along the edge here. Some woods and some roads. Prince Rupert and Lord Fairfax were our commanders. Order summary chart on this one as well. Charge, receive charge, make ready, rally. It's kind of nice. Compass rose up there, so north is that way. So that's Naseby. So this is another one that's oriented in this direction. This is Nordlingen, and this obviously is from the Sweden Fights On. And so you have your commanders down here, Gustav Horn and King Ferdinand. And then obviously the battle laid out here. As you can see, this one's got some decent terrain to it. You do have some slopes and so on, right? You've got some steep slopes here and everything. So this is probably an interesting one. And on this side, we have Wittstock. Nice open area here in the middle. Scharfenberg, Hottenberg. So you have some elevation, some slopes, a lot of woods. some marsh here along the river area. This one is Second Breitenfeld. I really like the finish on these maps. I gotta say, this is so much nicer than your typical kind of like flat, just papery one. This is nice thick linen finish. I really like this. So this, as I said, is Second Breitenfeld. Again, nice. This is a fairly open one. You do have some hills with slopes, and you have your towns here: Klein Wiederritz and Gross Wiederitz. And the Linkelwald here is that forest. On this side, it's more blue. We have Jankow. This is the last one. Here's Jankow right here. So that's your look at all of the maps. So I hope, I'll leave this one out for now, I guess. I hope you guys found this interesting. This is a pretty cool collection, in my opinion, and I'm looking forward to playing it. But I did want to do a first look. And I oftentimes do this as much for myself as for you guys, because it gives me a chance to actually look at the components and the rules, and just kind of walk through it and get a feel for everything. So I know people are like indifferent in general to unboxings. They're more interested in gameplay and instructionals and things like that, and I get it, because I'm the same way. But like I said, I do this mostly for me, and if you guys enjoy it too, then why not post it, so those who are interested in seeing stuff like this can do so. So that will do it. I am Joe. This is Hexed Encountered. Please like, share, subscribe, etc., as I always say. If you have anything to say, comments, questions, please let me know. I will do my best to reply. But that's it for this one. So until next time, happy gaming.